Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is January the 26th, 2024. Hopefully this episode finds you well in good spirits and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Let's see here. Work went pretty well. I'm very happy to be in the weekend phase of the week. It's very nice. Obviously, happy Friday. Happy Friday to ya. Let's see here. Food Corner last night was Korean fried chicken, white rice, some egg rolls, and then I had a few more hush puppies to clear out, so I just put them on the plate too. It was very yummy. No mistakes, no misses. Felt really good. It feels good to be back, Jack. Let's see here. There's really not much else to really report in about, at least on the me front. So let me go ahead and do my startup, and then we'll get into some news. Ooh wee. Ooh. Ooh. Okay. From the Associated Press. Top UN court orders Israel to prevent genocide in Gaza, but stops short of ordering ceasefire. The United Nations top court on Friday ordered Israel to do all it can to prevent death, destruction, and any acts of genocide in Gaza, but the panel stopped short of ordering Jerusalem to end the military offensive that has laid waste to the Palestinian enclave. In a ruling that will keep Israel under the legal lens for years to come, the court offered little other comfort to Israeli leaders in a genocide case brought by South Africa that goes to the core of one of the world's most intractable conflicts. The court's half-dozen orders will be difficult to achieve without some sort of ceasefire or pause in the fighting. The court is acutely aware of the extent of the human tragedy that is unfolding in the region and is deeply concerned about the continuing loss of life and human suffering. I know that this has been a big ruling, and a lot of people are talking, have a lot of opinions about it. Of course, I myself am one of them. But I think I'm overall, it's a step in the right direction. I don't know how positive I feel about it, though, because you do wish that they could have just said, yeah, this is what you're doing is a genocide. It is leading to a genocide. You have to stop. And I mean, strongly wording it the way that they have is good. Also, it was nice that they really didn't do they did say, yes, Hamas has to release the hostages. That's definitely, an atrocity in of itself, of course. But, they held Israel to account in this, and they said, hey, you guys, we're going to reconvene on this in a month, and we want to see some changes. And hopefully, you guys are actually abiding by what we're saying here, and, things don't get worse. But at the same time here, what is worse? The ICJ doesn't have any authority, really. They don't have any real teeth. There's no police here, and they're not going to do anything, which is crazy to me. They're what is the point of you if you can't enforce any of the shit you're saying, right? There's no teeth in the practice. But it's something. I think I don't want to be so negative about it because they didn't do the ceasefire part. I feel like it's key, but it is at least saying hey, let's put this on the record. This isn't right. This is wrong what you're doing, and something needs to change. Now, of course, Israel doesn't have to abide by this anyway, and I don't think that they will, sadly. Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't seem like he is. He's more or less just trying to say oh, this is a terrible situation. It's crazy that you guys are making us out to be the bad guy. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing here, but let's see. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the fact that the court was willing to discuss the genocide charges was a mark of shame that will not be erased for generations. He vowed to press ahead with the war. So I mean, no matter what, even if they did say the ceasefire thing, it's not like they would have abided. And maybe that was something they took into account. I don't want to put words in their mouth, thoughts in their head. I have no idea. But it's still major and it's still good. And I'm glad that they didn't just brush this off and just say like, oh no, Israel has a right to defend themselves. They're not wrong about this at all. Like, I do think it is wrong to be overtly negative about this. I think you do want to look at the positives here and say, hey, this is a step in the right direction. And hopefully, this is something, because when you really do look at it, like, Israel is at least receptive to what the fuck is going on. And I don't mean it in like a humanitarian sense. Like, they know that there are limits. They know that they can only go so far, and eventually someone's going to say, yo, you have to stop. I mean, maybe that's copium. I have no fucking idea, but I would like to hope so. And that, there is some kind of limit for them here in this situation, but I don't know. I'm getting in the weeds here. I can already tell. So let's go ahead and move on to the next beat. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm good at move on. We just kind of riffed it out there for starters. Let's move on to the next thing from The Guardian. Russia jails ultra-nationalist Putin critic and woman convicted of bomb attack. I gotta say, shout outs to The Guardian for giving me like the best Russia double feature I could ask for the week. I love a good balance, so I don't have to cite two different sources here, read two different fucking things. They said, we got you, baby boy. Here you go. So yeah, I'll give Guardian his chops. I'll give Guardian his credit there. All right. Russian courts have jailed a prominent ultra-nationalist critic of Vladimir Putin, and separately, a woman convicted over a blast that killed a pro-war blogger. Now, hopefully longtime listeners know that we covered this story, and I was like, oh my fucking, like, that shit was crazy. That shit was insane. We've technically talked about Gherkin too, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of what he did, in terms of downing a flight. Let's see. I'm trying to, I cannot, it's escaping me exactly where it was over, but let's get into it. Let's see. Did I already read this? Apparently, the Milwaukee's best is really kicking my ass right now. Anyway, Russian courts have jailed prominent ultranationalist critic of Vladimir Putin, and separately, a woman convicted over a blast that killed a pro-war blogger. In Moscow, a court sentenced Igor Gherkin, a former battlefield commander of Russian proxy forces in East Ukraine, who was convicted by a Dutch court over the shooting down of Flight MH17 to 4 years in jail on extremism charges prompted by his criticism of the Russian war effort in Ukraine. Gherkin, who also goes by the nom de jour Strelkov, was a leading military commander of the pro-Russian forces who occupied eastern Ukrainian cities beginning in 2014. His armed intervention backed by Russia marked the beginning of the conflict in Ukraine. Let's see. A former officer of Russia's FSB security service, Gherkin was arrested last summer in his apartment and charged with calls for extremism after months of public criticism in which he accused Putin of failing to pursue the war in Ukraine with enough vigor. So what I really like about this too is the way that this winds up being set up is like essentially within like the same week we have someone from the ultra right getting arrested, and then we also have someone from essentially I guess you could say obviously Russia's left, who is not okay with what's going on here, getting jail sentences. Now for Gherkin, I think he's only getting 4 years. So, it's something in the sense of like, when you're looking at it in the sense of the downing of that flight, the MH17, like that's not really justice though for the families, for the people involved in that. But at least it's something, I guess you could say. But it's over the fact that he was just saying like more or less Putin is a pussy and he needs to be doing more for Russia. He's not doing enough. And let me see. Let me just go ahead and zoom ahead here. Yeah, Daria Trepova. Um, In a separate case on Thursday, a Russian woman was jailed for 27 years for delivering a bomb that exploded in the hands of a pro war military blogger last year. Daria Trepova, 26, was convicted by a St. Petersburg court of charges including terrorism in connection with the death of the popular pro war blogger uh, Vladlen Tarkarsky. Her sentence is one of the longest given to a woman in modern Russian history. Tarkarsky, whose real name was Maxim Fomin, was hosting a discussion with other right-wing commentators at a cafe on the banks of the Neva River in the historic heart of St. Petersburg when he was killed. But yeah, I mean, essentially, I remember watching the footage, and she's walking in she's walking into the cafe, and then there's another camera, like I think that's taken during the gathering from like someone who's there, and you see him getting handed this thing, and he puts it like right next to him while he's talking, and then it pans back out to that same camera and shows the explosion, and it just takes out like almost it seems like the whole block area, like that whole corner of the street. It just looked like something out of a Jason Bourne movie. I don't know. It was something that was very captivating to me. Now, Trepova's defense was that she didn't know the device was a bomb. She thought that it was a microphone. She said that the Ukrainian operative who gave it to her, she said that she was acting under the orders from a man in Ukraine whom she knew as Gestalt, German for shape, who had been sending her money and instructions for several months. She pleaded not guilty to the terrorism charge. But yeah, needless to say, that defense did not work. She thought that it was just like a listening device and not a bomb. But no. But still, very interesting. A lot of shit just kind of taking place in the Russian legal system, and I felt like hey, let's go ahead and talk about it for the day. Let's go ahead and move on to the States. What I wanted to talk about, and it was something that I just feel like I kind of been in the weeds and I haven't really been able to, and sadly, because there's just bigger news in Alabama, we're not really going to get to it, I don't think. But just something I wanted to hit on from from Politico. It doesn't smell right. Alabama's medical marijuana debacle continues. Essentially, medical marijuana is still something that's getting jammed up in Alabama, very southern state in the United States, very conservative. And obviously that's something it just jams me. That bothers me. It's a bummer, In Ohio, we're still coming into our infancy in terms of legal weed. It still feels weird to me. So naturally, that's just something I just really wanted to talk about. Really wanted to kind of platform, if you will. But Alabama was like, hold my beer. I have to suffocate a man. I have to suffocate a man with nitrogen gas. And I said, what the fuck? So let's talk about that. That kind of was the main that I wanted to get into. So from the Associated Press, Alabama executes a man with nitrogen gas, the first time the new method has been used. It's like it's crazy the way that we as a society, especially as a Western society, especially as an American society, go out of our way to use technology in like a modern futuristic way, but it's so barbaric. It's just so fucking barbaric. Like, it's a death mask that you are putting on a person and they'll suffocate. Suffocation, no breathing. And we're proud of it. We're proud of it. Alabama is so stoked that we did this, and other states are chomping at the bit to try this shit on somebody. So yeah, let's get into it. Alabama executed a convicted murderer with nitrogen gas Thursday, putting him to death with a first-of-its-kind method that once again placed the U.S. at the forefront of the debate over capital punishment. The state said the method would be humane, but critics called it cruel and experimental. Spoiler alert, I agree with the fucking critics. Officials said Kenneth Eugene Smith, 58, was pronounced dead at 8:25 p.m. at an Alabama prison after breathing pure nitrogen gas through a face mask to cause oxygen deprivation. It marked the first time that a new execution method has been used in the United States since lethal injection. Now, the most commonly used method was introduced in 1982. Granted, it has not been without controversy. Granted, I mean, just overall, the conversation of capital punishment is something that I definitely feel like the longer we go, it just becomes more like you see more people going, no, this isn't okay, this isn't right. But at the same time, I think, especially from America and a lot of countries, I think, once again, I really talk about that socially conservative lens a lot, where it's like people lean on a religious reason or just the sense of justice and they go, look, it's an eye for an eye, baby boy. You gotta do this. If someone does a thing, there's gotta be an apropos for it. And in the situation with Kenneth Smith, he was a hitman. I know I've made the joke that a lot of podcasters make that, like, don't hire a hitman. It's actually always an undercover. Apparently in the 80s, I believe 1988, or 1980, no, yeah, I think it was 88. It was 88. Smith was hired to kill with another person, a woman, and I know I should have her name at the ready. I do not. Elizabeth Sinnott, 45 years old. Yeah, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey said the execution was justice for the murder for hire killing of 45-year-old Elizabeth Sinnott in 1988. The other suspect was already executed. Also, they tried to kill Smith already with lethal injection. There was a problem with the connection in the IV, and he survived the attempt. And that right there, when I heard that, like, my head went to a medieval place. Because I listen to a lot of history, a lot of little podcasts talk about that kind of bullshit. And, like, back in the day, if you survived, like, the hanging, that used to be, like, the way you got out of the situation, And then they realized, like, well, that's not what we want. Now we got to handle this, like, grievously maimed man, and he's still alive, and, like, no one got their justice. So they revised that rule over time. And needless to say, for Smith, you gotta fucking get that fucking shit, bro. It's just a matter of how we're gonna do it. So essentially, they said, "Oh, we're gonna do a little bit of a remix," and they decided to do this nitrogen gas mask thing. Now, for in terms of the Sinnott's family, they're not stoked about this, but I think they do overall feel like it's justice served, and I get that. I've said this before when it comes to this kind of situation. Like, I can never speak for the families. I can never speak for people who's going through this. I've lost loved ones, but not that way. And yeah, I can't imagine it. And I know that if I did lose someone this way, it would probably change the way I view this. It would definitely rock it a lot. It would challenge it. That's for fucking sure. But, where I stand now, I just feel like there's capital punishment in general, whether we're talking this fucking gas mask thing, we're talking lethal injection, firing squad, hanging, electric chair. We just shouldn't be doing it anymore. I get it. Like, the whole idea of putting someone in life behind bars, like when someone has been, robbed of their life itself, like, that's fucked up. Like, there's got to be some kind of balance. But I hate to tell you, there's never going to be a balance. There's never going to be, like, an evening of the scales here. Like, I just don't think it's the way. I think as we grow and evolve, we have to come up with better ways of dealing with this. Our crime, our punishment, like, the whole thing, like, things have to change. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I'm not the one at the, the levers of power here. But that being said, let's see. What else did I really want to pull here? Yeah, there is some more here. That was all expected and was in the side effects that we've seen or researched on nitrogen hypoxia. What he's referencing here, Ham, who is the person I believe who was the overseer of the whole thing in terms of how it was going to go down. That was the Alabama Corrections Commissioner John Q. Ham. He essentially said the whole thing went according to plan. It was all good. Everything was great. But Smith's spiritual advisor, the Reverend Jeff Hood, said the execution did not match the state attorney general's prediction in the court filings that Smith would lose consciousness and in seconds, followed by death within minutes. We didn't see someone go unconscious in 30 seconds. What we saw was minutes of someone struggling for their life, said Hood, who attended the execution. Also, I listened to him, if I'm not mistaken, on Start Here today, and he added that he's like, look, I've seen a lot of executions. This was one of the worst ones I've ever seen. And I think that says something. I think that speaks waves. You know what I mean? Like, once again, justice served, cool, whatever, but it should not be at this kind of cost. It shouldn't be like someone writhing in pain to death. And not to mention, there's a potential risk involved because this is nitrogen gas being filled into a room. And it's not like most of it's going into the person, sure. But like, let's say something fucking happens. You could potentially blow up a whole fucking room with this shit, man. Just to kill someone, like this literally feels like a Michael Bay movie, you know, when you pan out far enough, and that's strange, that's bizarre. Gosh, I am a bit in the weeds here, and I kind of wanted to here it is, thank God I found it. Smith ate a last meal of T-bone steak, hash browns, toast, and eggs slathered in A1 steak sauce. I know that's a little bit of an oddity maybe, but to me, a big thing that's important. This is a question I asked some of my close friends: is, you know, what would be your last meal? You know, because I think that's something that we all maybe think about, and it's crazy to hear someone go through that actual whole process. Also, it's added to that I think because of this, he had to like have like an 8-hour fast because they didn't want there to be any kind of complications with him eating in the nitrogen. So yeah, there's that all happened. Yeah, let's call that coverage. I want to move on now to the next bump. It's the last thing, and I'll let you go. But let me take my break. Let me reconnoiter. This could get sloppier, believe it or not. All right. But you know what? We're going to end on a good note. From Reuters, Donald Trump must pay Jean Carroll $83.3 million in defamation case. Jury finds. Run it up. Donald Trump was ordered by a federal jury on Friday to pay $83.3 million in damages to Jean Carroll, who accused the former U.S. president of destroying her reputation as a trustworthy journalist and denying he raped her nearly 3 decades ago. Now, and obviously some ways this is an update. She was awarded some money already before, and you know, in a lawsuit. I thought that they were like directly connected, but technically I think this was for like a November 19 denials. Okay, yeah. So Carroll, 80 years old, sued Trump in 2019 over his denials 5 months earlier that he had raped her in the mid 1990s in a Bergdorf Goodman department store dressing room in Manhattan. Trump 77 claimed he had never heard of Carroll and that she made up her story to boost sales of her memoir. So yeah, essentially these are like, I don't know, it's kind of confusing to me, I guess, but so, you know, she got her initial verdict and then, you know, Trump didn't stop talking, and then next thing you know, this is happening on top of it. But essentially the judge had like already ruled, it's like, hey, Trump cannot say that she's lying now. Like, this is officially of record. Like, the jury has like ruled on this. It's a thing now. But like throughout the whole process, Trump was like saying this is a witch hunt. This is like bullshit. Like, obviously, once again, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he was just kind of making a spectacle of it. And, the judge tries to call him out on it, a couple of times, but like he more or less just plays right on the fringes, as he is wont to do. He does get up on the, what is it? He does a testimony. He testifies. More or less, he's allowed to reference, his prior testimony in which he's like saying like, hey, this is a hoax. She's making it up. But it just doesn't hold for the jury, and they give her so much money, because that's not what she had asked for. Let's see. Yeah, the payout far exceeded the minimum $10 million that Carroll had been seeking. So essentially, they had awarded her just so much more extra because they're like, no, you actually were damaged. Like, your career took a hit, which I guess makes sense because I think when I initially was thinking on this, when I was listening to this, was that they were just talking about it recently. So that's where as I'm talking about it. Once again, this is for me, y'all, not just y'all, not just you guys, but like they are attributing the damage that took place when he said the shit that he had said, and then from now to now. So I'm like, okay, I get it now. Full click. You know what I mean? Sometimes this is all worth it. Okay, cool beans. But obviously, great for her. And I obviously love it just because it's an L for Trump. Obviously, the big libs, the super libs, would love to say, look, this is indicative of how all of the trials are gonna go. He's just gonna keep on losing. Get ready. I would love for that to be the actual scenario, but I don't know. To me, this man is bulletproof. God willing, Carroll gets all of that goddamn money. Who knows? But the lawyers are looking for their money. Trump lawyers are looking for their goddamn shit and still not getting it. So who knows? Who can say? Needless to say, the news will continue. The show must go on. All that. But that's where we'll leave it for the day. Thank you so much for listening. Mea culpa. I feel like this was a sloppy episode. I feel bad. I'm embarrassed. Tomatoes on myself. But thank you for getting through it. Thank you for slogging through it with me. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, you can financially. Patreon.com/IsaiahNews. You can become a newsie today. I shout you out at the top of the month. Plug a project if you'd like. And then let's see here. IsaiahNews1@gmail.com if you would want to send any feedback that way. Kick it old school, 90s style. Anything else? Socials. Feel free to follow me on any of the ones that you're on, me or the podcast. Say what's up, say hello. Also, hopefully you're subscribed to the YouTube. Every subscription helps. Trying to get monetized, baby. So yeah, I need subscriptions to make that a thing. Also, comments help. Thumbs up help. You just clicking on that thing and just listening. That's pretty cool. That's dope of you. Feel free to do the same on Spotify, on Apple, whatever you're listening on. Helps out a lot. We'd love to see it. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.